I'm 28 now, living my own life in a place that's finally mine. But looking back, I still get that familiar, prickly heat crawl up my neck. It's been 2 years since the incident, but I can still remember every single detail. The exact sound of the humidity, the smell of that room, and the absolute soul-crushing silence that followed. Back then I was 26, and due to a series of unfortunate financial decisions, I had moved back into my childhood home to save money. If you've ever moved back in with your parents as an adult, you know the specific, suffocating brand of awkwardness that comes with it. You aren't a teenager, but the house treats you like one. My bedroom was right off the main hallway, the high-traffic artery of the house. Anyone coming in from the front door had to pass by my room to get to the kitchen, the living room, or the back stairs. It was a fishbowl, and I was the goldfish. The walls felt thin, the floors creaked in all the wrong places, and every time the front door opened, my entire nervous system went on high alert. I spent months living in a state of hypervigilance, constantly listening for the sound of my mother's car in the driveway or the telltale jingle of her keys. That house wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a psychological trap. I remember sitting in my room trying to read or work, feeling like I had to perform the role of a good, quiet daughter at all times. It was exhausting. And then, one Tuesday afternoon, the careful, fragile peace I had built around myself was about to be obliterated in the most spectacular, humiliating fashion imaginable. My then boyfriend came over. We had a solid plan. Mom was supposed to be at work until 6. The coast was clear. It was one of those oppressive Kansas afternoons, hot, heavy humidity that makes the air feel like a damp wool blanket draped over your shoulders. We had the AC unit in the window cranked up to the max. It was a beast of a machine, rattling, wheezing, and emitting a thick, relentless wall of white noise. It was perfect. It was a sound-dampening shield, a mechanical barrier that made us feel like we were the only 2 people left on the planet. I felt safe. I felt hidden. We were in the middle of some, let's call it enthusiastic adult activity. We were going at it, full throttle, completely lost in the moment. I was mid-climax, and because I truly believed we were encased in a soundproof bubble, I wasn't holding back. I was moaning louder than I'd ever realized possible. Everything was a sensory overload. The sweat, the thick, musky scent of the room, the faint aroma of his cologne, and my heart pounding like a frantic drum solo against my ribs. I had completely let my guard down. I wasn't the 26-year-old living in her parents' house. I was just a person, lost in a moment of pure, unadulterated intimacy. And then the world shattered. It wasn't a loud noise, it was the subtle, unmistakable creak of the front door being pushed open. It was a sound I had catalogued 1,000 times in my brain. Then the rhythmic thud, thud, thud of sensible loafers hitting the hardwood floor. My brain didn't just freeze, it short-circuited. My internal monologue was a frantic, high-pitched scream. Wait, is that Mum? She's supposed to be at the office. She's never home at 2 p.m. We were too far gone to stop. It was a high-speed train that had already jumped the tracks, hurtling toward a cliff. And right at the absolute peak of my climax, I made the fatal mistake of looking toward the door. I had forgotten to click it shut. Idiot move. The door was standing ajar just enough to provide a perfect panoramic view of the hallway, and there she was. Mom, arms burdened with heavy plastic grocery bags, was marching toward the kitchen. She hit the midpoint of the hall, her head turned slightly and our eyes locked. Time didn't just slow down, it curdled. Her eyes went wide, saucer-sized, absolute raw horror. For that split second, I saw her entire life pass before her eyes, and then my stomach dropped through the floorboards. I wanted to be swallowed by the earth. I wanted to turn into vapor. I felt a cold wave of adrenaline wash over me, freezing me in place. The shame was so physical, so heavy, it felt like I was being crushed. Then, the post-coitus silence hit, and it was the heaviest thing I'd ever experienced. She didn't scream, she didn't drop the groceries, she didn't call out my name in fury. She just kept walking with a jerky, robotic gait into the kitchen. I lay there, petrified, barely breathing, clutching the sheets like they were a bulletproof vest. Every cell in my body was vibrating with the need to disappear. I heard the rustle of plastic, the clinking of jars, and then the sound that haunts me to this day, the squeak of the pantry door hinge. That specific, rusty, high-pitched whine that I'd heard every day of my childhood. She was in there, meticulously unloading cans of soup or boxes of pasta, pretending with every ounce of her willpower that she wasn't currently standing in a crime scene of parental trauma. The sheer painful awkwardness of her pretending to be busy was 10 times worse than if she had just walked in and shouted at me. I could imagine her face, the way her lips were probably pressed into a thin white line, her eyes focused intensely on a box of cereal just so she wouldn't have to acknowledge the reality outside that pantry. After what felt like a lifetime, an eternity of listening to her rearrange kitchen supplies, I heard her footsteps again. She was coming back down the hall. My body went into full fetal position lockdown. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying to every deity I'd ever heard of. As she passed my door, she didn't stop, but she did something even worse. In a high-pitched, strained sing-song voice, she chirped, "I'm not here. I'm not here. La, 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 la." I could hear her physically backing up, shuffling toward the front door, still singing that frantic, manic melody. The keys jangled as she fumbled with the deadbolt. The front door clicked shut, and then the sound of her car pulling out of the driveway was the most beautiful music I'd ever heard. My boyfriend, the absolute menace, was roaring with laughter, clutching his sides while I was curled up in a ball, whispering, "Oh God, no, kill me, just kill me." We never spoke of it. Not that day, not that week. For the next 7 days, I basically lived in my room like a hermit, avoiding the kitchen, avoiding her eyes, while she acted like she was constantly on the verge of a deadline at work. We lived in this elaborate, silent choreography of avoidance. It's our family legend now. The day my mother became a professional opera singer to save us all from the most awkward conversation in human history. Every time I hear a pantry door squeak, I still hear that la la la. It's a memory that lives in the back of my throat, always ready to rise up whenever things get too quiet. I'm an adult now, but whenever I visit, I make sure the door is locked, twice. Because you never know when a simple trip to the grocery store will turn into a moment that defines your entire relationship with your mother. A few days ago, my best friend from college, let's call her Sarah, runs into my room. She is spiraling. She looks like she's just seen a ghost, but a very attractive one. She tells me she's found the one, her soulmate, her future husband. Apparently he's a student from the engineering department, and according to her, he's a solid 10 out of 10. Now, as her designated private investigator, I had to see this prize for myself. I couldn't just take her word for it. So she drags me across campus to the engineering wing. We're standing in this crowded corridor, and she's gripping my arm so hard I'm losing circulation. She points him out. "There," she whispers. "The one in the grey hoodie." I look over, squinting, expecting to see a young Brad Pitt or maybe a K-pop idol. And guys, I am not even joking. I looked at him, and the only thing that popped into my head immediately was, why does he look exactly like Stuart Little? I kid you not. He had this tiny, pointy nose, these quick, twitchy movements, and ears that were just a little too prominent. He wasn't ugly, but he was 100% a mouse in a human hoodie. I turned to Sarah like, him? Really? The Mouse King? But hey, she was in love, so I kept my mouth shut. But then I noticed the actual problem. Standing right next to Stuart was a girl. And let me tell you, if looks could actually kill, I would have been buried and forgotten within 3 seconds. She was giving me the most aggressive, soul-piercing side-eye I have ever experienced in my 20 years of life. It wasn't just a glance. It was like she was trying to set me on fire with her pupils. I whispered to Sarah, "Okay, I've seen enough. I've gathered the intel. Let's go before she uses her dark magic to turn me into a frog." We left. But little did I know, this was only the pilot episode of the Stuart Little saga. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that is honestly a bit unhinged. It's a story about a guy who looks like a cartoon rodent, a girl who literally wanted to end my existence, and how my survival instincts decided that the best way to avoid a lawsuit was to start a romance. Well, a fake one, anyway. So, let's set the scene. I'm a student, but on campus I have a bit of a reputation. I'm basically the unofficial self-appointed detective of every department. You know that one person who knows everyone? The one who knows which professor is a harsh grader, which cafeteria has the freshest sandwiches, and who's dating who behind the gym? Yeah, that's me. My network is huge. If you need info, you come to me with a coffee or a bag of chips, and I'll get you the tea.